So we want to welcome you to this training for FSA on how to consult under Section 106 using PA Share. We're excited to share Pennsylvania's Historic and Archaeological Resource Exchange with you. This is the system that we are now using for conducting 106 consultation. We think you'll find it collects similar information to the former project review form that you've been using. It collects that information electronically and it gets sent directly to us, which will help to expedite reviews. Through PA Share, you're able to actually see the history of a project review, including all of the attachments and submissions you've made to our office in one place. Also, the mandated SHPO review time is 30 days, but we believe that once the system is fully implemented, it's going to help us improve on our response times. So we've already talked, for those of you that are joining us, a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, just add those to the chat box, and Casey will monitor those. We're recording this to document any of the questions that are asked or for future reference. And then we'll be sending a link to the recorded training later this week. So I wanted to start with this screen here. This is the PA Share homepage screen. I mean, it's not the login screen, but this is where all the information on PA Share is located. And I put a link to this in the chat box. So I wanted to start by pointing out one particular part of this page, and that's the help materials. So under the help materials, you're going to find things like step-by-step tutorials. And I think Shelby sent these to you yesterday, the one for signing in and subscribing to PA Share. We also have one on submitting a new environmental review project, one on map interface, and there's more coming. Probably there'll be more up here next week. So it's important to check back here. And these literally go step by step through the process. So it's another tool that you can reference. We also have frequently asked questions. So if you click on the link here from the help screen, it'll take you to the FAQ page. Over here on the right, you can click on environmental review, FAQs, and that'll take you directly to some questions that we routinely receive. So you might want to take a look at these when you have some time. If you don't see the answer to your question here, and it is not project specific, it's on system operations, we'd encourage you to contact the help desk, which is this email here, pashare@pa.gov, and then we'll do our best to respond to your question. If you do have a question that is specific to a project review, then I would encourage you to get in contact with the actual reviewer for the project, and they can help you. So let's get started. The second link that we added to the chat box is a link to the login page for PA Share. I'm going to actually be using the test site. It says beta up here. I don't know that you can see that, but I'm going to use the test site today so that I don't submit any projects into the system, because this is sort of a demo and a test, but you'll be going to a page that looks just like this. And to sign in, you click on sign in, accept the disclaimer. And I wanted to note that you can run PA Share from any internet program except Explorer. Explorer 11, we have issues, so I would encourage you to use Chrome or Edge, some other browser except Explorer. So here we are at the login page. You're going to click on this, and then you are going to select Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Citizen Login. And this will allow you to enter your Keystone login. Okay, Heather doesn't see anything in the chat box. we can send you these links again. So here we are at the home page for PA Share. And so from the home screen, just to orient you, this is sort of what we call your dashboard over here of project submissions, requests, and SHPO responses. And I'm going to talk about this a little later, but this is where you'd find your projects over on the left. If there is any new information or updates on PA Share, they'll be here on the bulletin board. Okay. Then there is more information on how you search the database, submit a project. If you want to subscribe, there are different types of accounts in PA Share. The Keystone login will give you a basic account, and that is enough for you to submit an environmental review project. If you wanted access to all of the resource information contained in PA Share, or if you wanted to manage multiple accounts, then you might go for a professional or business user. Heather has more of a professional or higher level account because NRCS has a programmatic agreement with our office. So there are different levels, but we're going to go over the basic today, and I wanted to let you know basic is sufficient to submit a project. So if you have a new project and you want to submit that, we're going to start right here by clicking on the submit button up here. You could also click down here, but I tend to just operate from the top. So click on submit at the top of the screen. Then you're going to see a series of wizards for data entering different types of projects. We are using the system to manage all of the program areas in our office, so that's why you see so many here. The ones you're going to be specifically concerned with, to enter a new project, you're going to use environmental review. And if you had additional information on an existing project that we are not asking for, you would use project supplement. But we're going to start with the environmental review wizard. So click on visit. That's going to take you to the screen. Again, we're only using this for projects that are new. And just to orient you to the screen, right up here, the first thing you probably want to do when you log in is go to your user profile and view profile. So you see the head and shoulders. You're going to click on view profile. It says my subscription is expired. Anyway, you can go ahead in here and actively update your address information. If you update it here, then you won't have to fill it in every single time you go through the data entry of a project. So the first thing I would do is when you log in is update your profile. So some other things to know about the screen. The red asterisk, that denotes those fields that are required. So project name is required. Anything that you have to enter has a red asterisk after the name of the field. There's some general help information over here on the right side, okay, that can be useful to you. So you want to check that out. And then there are 3 buttons down here that are going to stay with you throughout the data entry process. I'm going to go ahead and enter my contact information so you can actually see those buttons. So the primary contact is the person who's responsible for responding to SHPO requests. So for whatever reason, it wouldn't let me update my profile. So I now need to actually add that information here. But if I had done that, if it had allowed me to save my profile information, I wouldn't have to be doing this. So essentially, you're going to add yourself as a contact and click Save. The primary contact on the project is the person that will be receiving any kind of responses from our office, all the notification emails. Anybody who's a contact on the project can also look at the project history and receive those notification emails. So it may be because there, staff changes happen, or you want to add someone else from your agency, you can add multiple contacts here. Okay, you just add them and save them. However, you want to make sure the primary contact is the person who is going to be dealing directly with the SHPO and sending information back and forth. Heather has a question, can they see the project history notifications without having a PA Share account? The answer is you could receive an email, system-generated email, and forward that to them, but they will not be able to log in, click on the active link for the project and see the history. So no, they have to have a PA Share account in order to get into the system, and they have to be a contact on the project in order to actually view any information on the project. So it's really important to add everyone that you want to be able to see the project information here. So we're going to get started here in the project overview section. This is the really general information on a project. And it needs to be supported by the documents that you'll get to upload at the end of the screen. And you're going to see that the information that we're asking for here is very similar to what was required on the project review form. So I'm going to start with one of those projects I sent you. This is the Tom and Amy Elliott property. So the project name is the official name for the project, okay? Project description, this could be a very brief narrative to sort of orient the reviewer as to what the project entails. I'm going to try to go in here and I was going to cut out, you can actually cut text from the PDF and paste it in here if so that's what I'm going to probably do. But this is essentially where you're going to describe your project. Again, it should be brief because this field is limited to 1,000 characters. You can see it cut me off. If you want to be able to see this field, you can pull in this box here in the lower right-hand corner to see everything that you've data entered. Okay. So you're going to enter your project description, and then if you have a more detailed description, you can certainly attach that, and the reviewer will be taking a look at that. Present land use, this is a description of current conditions. So this is an agricultural property. It's in a barnyard. You could put in descriptors like that. Previous land use, you should include a description of the past land use or any modifications to the property. So the attachment to this particular project does a pretty good job of saying farm complex includes mostly buildings constructed, I think it was in the 1970s. House may date to 1860. Property has been under continuous agricultural use. Area of, well, we're going to get to the area of potential effect. So this is essentially a way for us to understand what's happened and any changes that might have occurred. So it's also an area to talk about previous ground disturbance. So we know that the proposed concrete pad with roof is going to go in a location where there's a concrete pad already and in an area that's adjacent to the dairy barn, so you could add some more about that. You might want to upload as project documents historic aerial mapping or site histories that help to support the information that you enter here. Then if you have a project that has the potential for ground disturbance, you're going to check the involves ground disturbance box. More information on the horizontal extent and the nature of the ground disturbing activities like plans or drawings or maps, you could be adding those as project documents. I think some of that was covered up here in the project description. If the project has the potential to affect a building that's 45 years in age or older, then you would check this box. This project is actually going to attach to a 1970 barn, but it's in a historic farm complex, so I'm going to check this box, and I think we have 1860 as the date of the house, but really I think the house is the one and only building that remains from that time period, but I'll add that here. And then what type of project is it? And again, this is straight from the project review form. This project includes construction, so I'm going to check that box. And I think there's minor demolition, so I'll check that box. Okay, so that's really an overview of the project. If your project APE had 10 or more resources, you would check that box, and that's going to be uncommon unless you have maybe a really large linear project. I don't anticipate FSA is ever going to be needing to check that box. Okay. So moving on to agencies. This is where you're going to select the agency. Now for USDA, we just have one broad USDA agency choice, and then you could put in your specific FSA, RDA, and RCS here, and this was the direct farm loan program. So I'm going to add that. I don't know, Keith, do you have like numbers that you track your loans with?
We do have loan numbers, facility loan numbers, but I would maybe, I'm just trying to think for PII information. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, only if you want to, you could add it here just for tracking purposes.
Okay.
You don't
All right.
need
Let's
to.
keep it that way then. Okay.
Okay. The only thing that's required on this agency screen is the select an agency, the agency itself. This is just things that you can use if you want to, but if you don't, that's fine. So we've added the USDA as the lead agency. Now let's say if this project also needed a DEP permit. You could add DEP, and DEP is going to show as a secondary or not the primary agency, because the federal always trumps the state in our review process. So you can also go in here and toggle between which is the primary and which is the secondary, and you can delete these. So there's a lot of functionality to these grids. So you've added the agency. The one thing you can't do here is add the agency contact information. You need to do that up under the contact screen, so keep that in mind. Then the project location. So we begin by asking what kind of property is it located on. This is private property. The project address. This is generally a mailing address, but you can enter an intersection of two roads, and the system will be able to find it because this is GIS based, and you're going to see that when we get to the mapping. So I've data entered the address. If this was a project that covered multiple locations, I don't know how many of projects you guys have like that. I don't think it's common. But if you did, you would just enter the first location here and map the first location as the project location, and then attach the others to the review. So APE, this is the area of potential effect. That's the geographic area, or it could be areas in which a project might directly or indirectly cause changes to the character of a historic property. So the area of potential effect is usually focused on above ground resources. So we know that APE includes area of proposed new concrete pad adjacent to dairy barn. If you were going to build something really large and sizable, or if you were making major changes or demolition of the buildings, you'd note all of that here. It's really how is this project going to affect the resources. So and possible removal of end wall. So I'm going to describe it. I don't need to calculate the area because the system will do that for me when I map it. Okay. The limit of disturbance. This is more specific to archaeology. So this is the limit of ground disturbance. And I checked that the project involved ground disturbance above, so it's going to require me to describe and map an LOD. So this is the total earth disturbance for the project. It should include, areas of new construction, if they're don't know, if there were laterals running to, utilities or sewers, access roads, those kinds of things, they would all be within the LOD. So this is the area of proposed new concrete pad construction. Again, the area is, the acreage of that area is going to calculate once I map it, so I don't need to do that. I'm going to zoom to the project address. If I didn't enter an address up here, I could also enter it in the upper left-hand corner of this map, but I'm going to zoom to the project address. And what the mapping screen there will do is it will center on your project location, okay? So I'm going to spend a little bit of time here explaining the mapping. Here in the lower left-hand corner, there's an option to enter full screen. So I'm going to do that so you guys can see this a little better. And I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so here we are. I think my property is somewhere around here in the center of the screen. Now, to orient you to the screen, there are 4 buttons in the upper right-hand corner. The first one, Change Base Map, allows you to select what you want your base map to be. So I'm going to go with the imagery, the aerial imagery. Okay. The second one, Layer Visibility, that allows you to turn layers on and off, and I'm going to come back to that. The third one, Expand, is a key for what is shown on the map. So I'm looking at my map and I see I've got this green shaded area here that looks huge. I've also got this long linear green shaded area around the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And then I have this red boundary that seems to include my farm complex right here. Here I've got a green boundary around this specific property. So there's a lot of resources in this area. And if I actually wanted to map my project location at this point, I couldn't because these layers are covering it up. So let's go in here to expand and see what these notations mean. So this is similar to CRGIS. Green is eligible. Red is not eligible for the National Register. And then orange is undetermined. That means it's been documented but not evaluated for National Register eligibility. And this is very specific to above ground resources. Archaeology sites would show up in here too. If I was logged in as an archaeologist, I'm not. So I just want to show you, if I click right here, I'm going to get a small report on what that resource might be. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner of this pop-up, there's actually 2 resources at this location. The first one, which is the big green area, is the Hopewell Township Rural Historic District, which has been determined eligible. And if I actually wanted to see information on the resource, I could click View and it would take me to the resource screen. And then the second one is the Myers property, which has been determined not eligible. And I believe that actually is the property, sorry, that we're looking at now. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So, and if I clicked up here within this long linear green line, there's 2 resources, the Hopewell Township Rural Historic District, but then the Pennsylvania Turnpike has been determined eligible. So you get a sense of the different types of resources that show up in PA Share for above ground. Now at this point, I think I'm going to turn the layers off so I can map my APE. So the second button, Layer Visibility, click on that. And you can see there are a lot of different layers. I'm going to turn off all of them by clicking on this eyeball next to the one that says PA Share Map. Okay. And that will always turn off all of the layers for you. So here's my property on 3 Square Hollow Road. And I had originally come in here to map the area of potential effect and the limit of disturbance. I think that's my property. Let me pull up my current aerial here. Yeah, that looks right. I think I just have to zoom in. I can get in here pretty close on the farm. And my project where this concrete use area is over here. Now, there are 2 ways of mapping the APE and the LOD using these widgets down in the corner. The first one, that's the easiest, is just to upload shapefiles. If you have them, you can upload the APE shapefile and the LOD shapefile. But if you don't have them, then you can use the second one, or the sketch widget, which looks kind of like a pencil to draw a boundary. So you click on the pencil, and then this little box pops up. I would recommend that you use the draw a polygon feature. And how you do this is you essentially go to where you want to start your boundary. Okay, so I'm looking at my map and it looks like this should start here. We should go along the front of this T addition, which part of that might need to be removed, it said. Click here, which is the northeastern corner. I come down here, and I am literally clicking with my mouse at each one of these points to create a polygon. That includes the area where the project is going to be built and has the potential to affect above ground resources. When I finish and I want to close that polygon, I'm going to line up with that original point and left click. So now I have this yellow polygon that is my APE. Now, let's say I didn't like that. I feel like it's not precise enough, and obviously, yeah, it's not very, there's not right angles and all that. I would click on the polygon, and then I would go down here and click on the trash can. It says delete feature. My polygon's gone, and now I'm going to redraw it. The other option, if you have a perfect rectangle like this project, you could click draw a rectangle and decide where you want to start. Oops. Yeah, you can tell I don't use this feature too much. So we're going to learn this together. I'm going to click on it, and I can, expand it, move it around. Personally, I think what I'm going to do is stick with the draw a polygon because it's just too difficult. So I'm going to click again and draw a polygon. So, and then click on the original point to close the polygon. Now let's say the LOD is the same as the APE. That makes it easy. So I've drawn my APE. I have an orange-yellow figure there to represent it. I'm going to click on LOD and just copy my APE as the LOD polygon. So that makes it pretty easy when they're the same. If they weren't the same, then you'd actually use the same process. Go down here and select draw polygon, and then click on the various points to draw the LOD. If it's a very complicated APE or LOD, we'd highly recommend you upload the shapefile. Okay. If you have a project that's in multiple locations, you can draw what we call a discontiguous APE, like you had, or LOD would probably be the best. So like you had a section of the project here, you could draw a polygon here. Maybe you were going to add a new access road, you could draw around the road up here. You can add multiple locations that aren't all within the same single polygon. Just keep clicking and adding to the mapping. Okay. Now, you can also continue to attach a map of the ground disturbance with details, of what's going where. This really doesn't replace the project plans or details. This is just a map of the project location, particularly the AP and the LOD for our files. One thing to remember is the LOD must be fully inside the APE. So if your project involved an addition here and this acts maybe a new access road in this location, for example, then the APE would have to be probably the entire farm, and the LOD would fall within that. Just keep in mind the LOD always has to be within the APE. So that's the screen for mapping. So I'm going to go out of the full view by clicking in the lower left-hand corner. And what you'll see is in this field, municipalities containing the APE, that was populated by what you mapped up here. So we know this is in Hopewell, Cumberland County. Also, what pre-populates from the APE that you mapped are the previously identified resources in the APE. So you can see that there are 3 resources listed here. The first is the Myers property. It's 714 Three Square Hollow Road, the Hopewell Township Rural Historic District, and the Pennsylvania Turnpike. If you were going to have a direct impact to any of these previously identified resources, then you would have to update the resource. So let's say we were demolishing a building within the Hopewell Township Rural Historic District. We know that's eligible. That was the big green polygon that we saw up above. So to update information on previously identified resources, you click on this plus sign, and there's a lot of detail on this on page, I think it's 22 of the how to enter a ER project tutorial. But you click on that plus sign and it will take you to a resource screen. Okay. What is required on this screen? I mean, we want to collect information on resources. If the information in our files is outdated, feel free to update the information on the resource. And you can see this is a very large rural historic district that largely follows the boundaries of Hopewell Township, with the turnpike as the edge on the north, and 641 is the edge on the south. But what's required on this screen, if you're going to physically affect this resource, the only things that are required are add a photo and the recorder. So I'm going to show you how you'll know what's required on any screen. If I go down here and click on Save and Close, it's going to tell me errors exist. This resource cannot be saved. And you'll see that what's required on this screen is a photograph, an updated photo, because it's been we want a new photo of resources for our records. Also, if anything is changed in terms of the resource information, you would update that. And then the other required field is a comment. So maybe you're saying, maybe it's a resource where the barn's been removed and you're making a note of that. Here, you would add that. But that's really the basic information that's required when you go to update a resource. But we'd encourage you to add anything else. And again, we're only asking you to update the resource if you're directly affecting it. Also, I'm going to, on the next project submission that we go through, I'm going to show you how to add a new resource. So we're going to skip over that part of the screen right now. So did anybody have questions on mapping or this part of the data entry thus far? Okay, we're going to take that as a no and keep going. But if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. And again, we'll come back and show you how to enter a newly identified resource. So project documents, this is the additional information and supporting documentation that can be uploaded and attached at the end. So it supports the information that you provided above. Things like, project description, plans and specifications. If you're going to demolish something because it's in poor condition, maybe a structural assessment, any kind of alternatives you considered, all that stuff would go in this section, the more detailed information. Now, if you recall, when you submitted the project review form, we were asking you to send the form and then a PDF attachment with the description, the photos, and the plans. Similarly, in PA Share, you just want to upload a single attachment if you can with all of that information, because it's far easier for us to just go in here and open up one document and review that rather than opening up multiple documents. So we would ask that you continue to do that. So I'm going to go down here, skip over photos for a minute, and click on Add an Attachment. You're always going to select File from Local Disk. That means you're going to get the file off your computer. We are not really truly accepting URLs. And I don't think you guys normally do this, but we have some agencies and consultants that upload files to their website and then expect us to go get them. We're not doing that. We're expecting people to actually upload the file. So the name of the file should be what is in the attachment. So I'm going to put project description, plans, and photos. Okay. The type will always be document. And then I'm going to select my file. So this is a new construction project. All right. And then I'm going to click on upload. So again, what was required on the attachment screen was the name and the type and where it's coming from. You don't need to add description. We would actually prefer if you make the title of the file the description. And this can take a little while depending on the size of the attachment. PA Share can accept attachments up to 70 megabytes in size, so pretty sizable attachments. You can also zip files and attach them here if they're too large, but generally we're finding that people aren't having trouble with the size of the attachments they can upload. It just takes a while to upload them when they're larger. I will say you have the ability to add a photo, but we would encourage you, rather than uploading individual photos with descriptions of what's shown in each photo, which is time consuming, we would encourage you to continue to submit the photos as photo pages and include, a site plan with the photograph locations in your PDF. So you really don't need to add photos if they're included as an attachment, but if you do, it's a very similar process. You click on Add a Photo. You go to File from Local Disk. The name really should be a description of what the view is. This, for some reason, requires description and a date, and then you can attach the files. And we can generally accept most types of digital images as photos. But if it's a different file type from those listed here, then you would need to add them as an attachment. Okay. So at this point in time, I've gone through entering the resource and mapping it, or rather entering the project and mapping it. And you'll see that in the upper right-hand corner, this submission has been assigned a token number. The minute I added a new contact to my project submission, it was assigned a token number. So when I go to submit this to the SHPO, if I've done this correctly, it will give me that token number. If I haven't, and I'm going to mess this up purposely, I'm going to take out the project name. I'm going to click Submit to SHPO. If you're missing any fields that are required, when you go to click Submit to SHPO, and please don't submit your projects if you're following along with me today, let's not submit your project to the SHPO. You can just close out and not save it, or you could hit Finish later and it'll go over into your drafts, and I'll show you where that'll be in a minute. But since this isn't an actual submission, please don't submit to the SHPO. But I'm in the test environment, so I went to submit to the SHPO, and it says missing required fields, project name. And then, that would be down here at the bottom. And then I would scroll back up and look for red boxes. I see a red box, so I'm obviously forgot to data enter, the project. So gotta enter the project name. And now let's try to submit to SHPO. So once I submit it to SHPO, I get this thank you for your submission, and it gives me the token number. So I know that I have gotten the submission into PA Share at this point in time. So that is the first indicator that you've made it through getting your project submitted. So I'm going to loop back and go ahead and data enter the other project I gave you because I want to show you how to enter a new above ground resource. And then we will go through the kind of response emails you're going to get from the system to let you know where your project is in the review process and how you can go into the system and see our response comments. But I want to go back. So I'm going to submit a new project again. I'm going to go to submit, visit the environmental review wizard because it is a new project. Before any of these fields will be active, I have to add my primary contact information. Okay. Because I didn't update my profile, it will require me to add the address. There's the contact. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time actually data entering all of this because I do want to have time for questions. I'm going to skip down here and talk about adding a new resource for above ground resources. So if you take a look at the second project that Shelby sent yesterday, this is an NRCS project that Heather sent in involving a farm up in Leonardsville. And it looks like they're going to be adding a new roof manure stack pad in a heavy use area in the vicinity of the barnyard. And it's going to require the removal of a shed in the barnyard. And the photograph Shelby sent, I think it was called new construction, but it should have said demolition. So that building in that photograph, which I think was a stable historically, it looks like to me, is going to be demolished. So anytime you have a project that involves demolition of a building or some major changes to the building, meaning you're going to put on an addition that's very large, or you're in the middle of a farm complex and you're going to build a very sizable building, any kind of major change to the built environment is going to require you to add a new resource. If you're not sure when you go to submit your project if you should add a new resource, you can just data enter the project and wait for us to ask for the resource information. But if you know for a fact that you're going to demolish a building that's 50 years in age or older, then I would go ahead and do this add a new resource. So I'm going to click on this button and it's going to ask me, do I want to add an above ground resource, an archaeological resource, or a district resource? Almost always, if it's a farm, you're always going to use add building resource. We're not treating farms as districts, we're treating them as buildings. You can add multiple outbuildings, and I'll show you how to do that. Generally, at the time of initial project submission, you will not be adding an archaeological resource. The archaeologist would probably request that. So I think for the most part, the only time you're going to use this is if, again, you're doing a demo, major new construction, or major alterations. So you're going to add building resource. And the resource here is not, just that stable, it's actually the entire farm. But I'm going to just show you briefly what's required. So address is required. And you may have already mapped your APE at the beginning of the data entry of this project, but it's going to require you to map the actual resource boundary. So you can see Heather provided a map that has like multiple parcels that go with this farm, and it's very detailed. And that's exactly what you would be mapping here. Again, if you had a shapefile to upload that tax parcel boundary, generally for a farm, this is going to be the limit of the tax parcel boundary. Let's see, Heather gave me USGS map, so I'm going to switch over Let's see if I can maybe map it using this. Yeah, it's pretty complicated, so I'm going to do this quickly and it's not going to be accurate, but what you need to do is map that tax parcel boundary. And this is a case where I would say you need to try to upload the shapefile if you can. I'm just eyeing this. If I wanted to be more precise, I'd use the aerial, but I'm literally eyeing this off of that map that she sent, USGS map. And it looks like it's a bunch of parcels that were combined. And it looks like it curves. So when you're curving lines, you just hold down your mouse and pull it. If it's a straight line, you draw dots. But if it's a curved line, hold down your left button and click with, I guess you click with your right. You hold down your left button and move your mouse. I'm sorry, I have a keypad mouse, so it's a little hard for me to follow on my laptop. But you'd hold down your left button and draw that curved line with your mouse by directing it. So there's my polygon for the resource. When I go to add a building, photograph is always required. So here's where you're going to see, again, we want you to use descriptive information. So I'm going to say stable, which is going to be the same thing as the description, and the date, I'm just going to guess. And then I'm going to upload the file from my computer. Again, the photo that you were sent yesterday was mislabeled, but it's actually should have said demo and not new construction. But now we're uploading the photograph. For farms like this that have lots and lots of buildings, I would recommend you just upload one photo because that's all you really need to add. And then you include the rest under project documents at the bottom of the screen as an attachment, okay? And it's like a PDF of photo pages with a map, with a site plan with the photo locations. Adding these photos one by one is incredibly time consuming, but at least, there's a thumbnail here that gives you a sense of what the farm looks like, and there's our stable building. Location information, again, this generated based on what you drew and the boundary up above in the map. So that's not required. Summary information, this is where we're requiring, some of you may be familiar with our abbreviated historic resource survey form. Some of you may not, but these are the very basic fields that we require to data enter a resource to get it into the system at identification level. So if you go back up to the beginning of the screen real quick, this says identification, enter the information to create or update resource information. Identification is the very basic information that you need to get the resource in the system. If we ask you to do an evaluation of that resource's eligibility for the National Register, or if you've done an evaluation, then there's a different section of the screen that I'll show you in a moment. But right now we're on identification. So very basic summary information like the resource name, and I don't know the historic name, so I'm going to call it the Michael Hyder Farm, which is the current name. And then I click on save. Every one of these, and it's a building, every one of these little pop-ups like this requires you to then go through and select features and hit save. So it's let's say it was an animal facility. Presumably it housed horses. So I have to click save. And then I move on to current function, very similar. I believe it's still an animal facility. Click save. So I've got historic and current function, foundation. Maybe it's concrete. Wall. It's going to be wood. That's not technically weatherboard. Those are technically horizontal boards. This is vertical boards, so I'm just going to go with wood unspecified. But just do your best. We're not grading you on your knowledge of architecture and building materials. We want this to be descriptive and reflect what's in the photographs. Add a roof material. I don't remember what it was. I'm going to just say it was metal. And then style. This is an outbuilding that we're looking at that's going to be demolished. But if you were looking, if you're evaluating a farm and you're documenting this as a farm, then I would, generally it is the house that has a style. So I would pick that based off of the house. Or if you don't know, because you're not an architectural historian, you can click unknown. We can go in and edit that later when we look at the photographs. Owner category, private, year built. I'm just going to guess here. So, and the date type is required after you enter the year built, and the choices are circa, exact, or range. If you don't know, but you have some idea of what it is, then go with circa. If you have a date stone or an exact date based off of primary documentation, you could go with exact. If you have really no clue and you're basing it off of a range based off of maybe you've looked at historic aerials for the forerunner to the FSA, the USDA aerials, then you could enter a range here as well. But I'm going to go with circa because I'm not 100% sure. Basis for dating is not required. I'm not filling that in. I'm only filling in what's required. But again, if you knew the tax parcel, you could add it. This information on stories, bays, room, steep, again, this is usually based off of the primary building. So it would be the house or the barn. If you're doing a farm complex, you'll see where you can add information on outbuildings in a minute. Also, window type, designer, builder, small scale features aren't required. Small scale features, though, are things like cold frames. I mean, there's a lot of things, arbors, cisterns, a mill dam. Those are the things you might find on a farm. If there was a historic fencing, you might want to note it. So if you have an outbuilding, this is the field. If you're doing a farm and you have multiple outbuildings, you want to use this add an outbuilding. So you can begin by selecting the type of outbuilding. So I'm going to say this is a stable. Description's not required. Year built is, and I'm going to say it was built in 1900 with the rest of the farm. That's an approximate date. Predominant material is not required. That's interesting. I think there's a flaw here between. Not sure why this date type is showing up twice. I thought we had fixed that. Just 1 second. I know we're in the middle of a live demo, but I've got to record this so I can remember to go back to it. We're still working through the system. I mean, there are some bugs in it, not a lot, but there are some. So just keep that in mind. And if you find issues like this, let us know. Okay, so I added an outbuilding, and you can see it shows up the stable, the year it was built, and a predominant material. And you can keep adding outbuildings if you want to. So that's just something to know that this is where you would add outbuildings if you were data entering this as a farm, okay? I'm not going to, oops, I went all the way out. I can go back in and edit it. So you see how it says here, I accidentally went all the way out. It says partial. That means I haven't entered enough for that to be processed as a resource by the SHPO. So I'm going to go back in and hit edit. It'll take me back into that data entry screen so I can finish entering the resource. There's only a couple more fields that are required. And I don't think I hit save and continue, but it looks like it's saved my information. I would highly recommend you hit save and continue as you work through the system. The standard timeout period is 30 minutes. So if you get on the phone, you're data entering something, you get distracted, you get on the phone, and you're way more than 30 minutes, it's possible it will not save that and you'll lose your information. So it's a good idea to hit save and continue periodically. And there's a field on the data entry screen that says you can finish later down here in the bottom. That's another good tool to use if you just don't have all the information at that time. So the other required field here is recorder. So this is, who documented the farm, not who's data entering the information, but who documented it. So first we're going to pick the reason. For you guys, it's always going to be environmental review. Then I'm going to add the recorder contact information. So if this wasn't you, the person data entering the project, you'd have to, if it's different, you'd have to change that here. But it's always going to default to your contact information. And now I'm going to click Save. At this point, I think I have a complete information for identification. Now, if you are evaluating this for National Register eligibility, there's a section here called Evaluation. It says if you're seeking a determination of eligibility for this resource, this information is required. And this is where you would indicate if you think it is potentially eligible for the National Register, if it meets the statewide agricultural context, under which criteria. The areas of significance, generally it's going to be A for agriculture for the properties that you're using, or you're affecting rather. There's options for period of significance, level. I don't think FSA has a lot of projects where they actually evaluate eligibility, but if you do, if you hire a consultant to document the property and evaluate it, then this is where all that information would be added. Now, this is the one thing we're working to move up on the screen to follow the identification level section is attachments. So let's say you have, a site plan and photographs of the farm. This is where you would add them. After you include that basic information, you'd have to scroll down through the evaluation portion of the screen to get to attachments, and you'd add them here, okay? And the site plan is really helpful for farms. Also helpful are the historic aerials over time showing changes to the farm, and the agricultural context worksheets if you evaluate them. And the photos can be here, as a one PDF. Again, if you want to put all that in one attachment and upload it all to the resource rather than breaking them down between maps and photographs and site plans or things, you can do that. So I think I've entered everything I need on the resource. I'm going to hit Save and Continue, or Save and Close. Let's hit Save and Close. Oops, it says errors exist. The resource cannot be saved. So I scroll up to see what's missing. I missed something. Oh, I missed the owner category. Let's see if I missed anything else. I missed the classification. I just think it didn't save those when I accidentally closed out. Oh, and I didn't map it. Yeah, that's kind of important. Okay. So here, you'll notice that I added the address, but it doesn't have the zoom to location button like it did on the project screen. I'm going to zoom, but I did map it. We did map it. It just didn't save it because I never hit Save and Continue. So I'm just going to draw a fake polygon here for the purposes of keeping this moving. Okay. All right, so when I go back out to the screen, instead of saying partial, it now says unprocessed. So that means it's ready to be submitted. It has adequate information, it just hasn't been processed. If it said partial, when you went down to submit to the SHPO, it would not allow you to do that, okay? So you gotta make sure we have a unprocessed status and then enter all your project information and submit it. But again, we're not requiring you to data enter a resource unless you're directly affecting a building or you're introducing something very sizable within the farm complex at this point. And if you're not sure, go ahead and send your project in without the resource information, and we will ask for more information if we think we need it. Okay, does anybody have questions on data entry of a resource? Okay. Now, if not, I'm going to talk a little bit about the responses that you're going to see coming from PA Share. And we can certainly take questions at the end if you think of them as we go along. But right now, we talked about once you make a submission in PA Share, that you see this screen that pops up that says, thank you for your submission, and here's your submission token number. In addition to that screen, you know, the way that you know that your submission has gone through is you will receive an email from PA Share to the primary contact, and that email will look like this. It'll say environmental review initial submission token assigned, and it'll have the submission token number within the body of the email. That just means you've made a submission. Then when we actually receive it into the system, you're going to get an email that indicates we've received an initial submission. Again, you know, here's your initial submission number. And if you wanted to see that initial submission, you could click on this link. If when you send in your project, we look at it and we realize that it isn't complete, that maybe you forgot to upload the project documents with the site plan and the description and the photos, then you're going to get a response that says, initial submission requires additional information to complete the submission. Within the body of that email, there will be a comment. It's by PA Shippo. It says, please provide whatever. This is really important. This is the only place this information is stored. The submissions are just that. They're submissions. They're not stored as projects in PA Share until the submissions are accepted and turned into projects, okay? So right now, when we reject that initial submission because it was incomplete, there's no tracking record of what we said in PA Share. It's in this email right here. So if you get an initial submission requires additional info, you need to look at this comment, know what we're asking for, and then click on this link, and that will allow you to go back into your submission and add the additional information. And I'll show you where you do that in a minute. But just keep in mind, if it says initial submission requires additional info, you need to look for our comments, and you probably should save that email until you resolve it. Let's say your initial submission is accepted. You'll get this email, and what that means is the project has been assigned a number. So you guys might remember the environmental review number, which was, you know, 4 digits, 3 digits, and 3 digits or more. This is essentially our new environmental review number. There are legacy numbers for the old environmental review numbers that I'll show you how you can find projects with the old ER number. But moving forward, the way we track projects in PA Share is this number here. So this project was submitted in 2021. The type of project is an actual project. We have numbers for resources that look like this, numbers for surveys, all the different types of submissions. So the middle part of this shows me it's a project. And then this is a sequential number here at the end as to when it was received. So it says it's been accepted, and then there's the project number and the project name. This is the project I entered a while ago called Walden's View. So your initial submission with this token number has been turned into a project, okay? At this point, you just know that your project has been accepted. And at this point, the email notification doesn't just go to you who data entered the project, but it also goes to additional project contacts. And then the one that you've all been waiting for is the PA Share submission response for environmental review project. This is the email that says, hey, we've responded to your submission. You know, we've reviewed it and we've provided comments. And at the link below, you can see our comments, okay? So if you give me a second here, I'm going to pull up an email that has comments. Okay, so here's an email like that. Here's that email for that Walden's View project. I'm going to click on the link, and it's going to take me. This is the submission response email, the link in the submission response email. It's going to take me back into PA Share, and it's going to require me to log in again. And I'm going to log in as, the email that I submitted it under. This is why, Heather, when you were asking, yeah, you have to have an account to be able to see the responses on the project, because you have to log back into PA Share. And this is going to take me directly to the response screen on the project. So this is a project I entered a while ago called Walden's View. If I look up here in the upper right-hand corner, I see that project number, and I can tell this is an environmental review project. I can also tell that this is in response to the very first submission. So you might remember there would be A or a B or a letter after the ER number. We've gotten rid of those. We've gone all numerical except for this middle part of the project number. So this is the first submission. If it was the second, it would be 0.002 and so forth. So here on the response screen, there's essentially 6 parts. The submission details is basic summary information on the submission. You can tell who submitted it, who closed it in terms of the SHPO review staff, and when it was submitted and when it was due. SHPO responses. This section really is an overall review decision on the submission. And so for environmental review projects, it will include responses for both above ground and archaeology resources. So I did the above ground review, Kim did the archaeology review, and here's our decision. I had no above ground concerns, she had no archaeology concerns. This was a HUD refinancing project for interior improvements. So SHPO comments. If there were additional comments made by the staff, they'll be found here in this external SHPO response. So there's the overall comment, which is hard to see here. I said that there was no effect on above ground resources. And then the more detailed comment is in the external SHPO response field or column. If this said something like, please see SHPO response letter found under attachments, then you would have to go elsewhere. Actually, I'm going to show you in a second. Generally, we are not going to attach a response letter unless we have concerns. And if we ask for more information, let's say I reviewed it and I thought I needed more photographs of the farm to make a decision, then that would show up here. You would highlight that request and click on process, and that would take you to a screen where you could enter that information. And then if there were attachments, you can click here and view. There are 2 options. You can download it, or you can view it in a browser, and that's specific to PDF. So we're not going to do that right now, but because this project, it didn't have a letter. This was an old project that had a project review form that we signed. But I think what you're going to appreciate the most about this screen is you have all the comments here summarized, but the print summary button, which is down here in the lower right-hand corner, it's only provided for environmental review projects, but this button allows you to download a PDF of a system-generated SHPO response summary for your environmental review record. So I've downloaded this PDF. Essentially, this is replacing the signed project review form. Okay, for your easy, clear-cut projects where we don't have concerns, this is what you're going to get. And it's going to say this is system-generated. If you have questions, go to the help page. The date of our response, who the primary contact is. Here's the subject line. It has the project number. And it's going to explain the agency, the name of the project, the location. Above ground resources and archaeological resources will have separate comment sections, and you'll have the email of the reviewer and then our specific comments. If this says, please see SHPO response letter and PA share, then this isn't the official complete record. You're going to have to go back into PA share and print out the letter from down here under attachments. Okay, so that print summary essentially replaces the project review form. A couple other things I wanted to show you. You can go into the project from the response screen. If you click here. And here's where all of those project documents would be located. The history of review on the project would be located. History of submissions, but you're probably mostly going to care about what's the history of submissions. Maybe who are the contacts on the project and what project documents have been uploaded. Okay, so this is where you can go in and look at what, somebody already submitted on the project. If somebody else started it and you were added as a contact, or you can go in here, again, click on view. It'll allow you to download or view it in the browser, similar to our responses if we had a letter. So this is the project information. And this is a very specific project screen. And I think mostly you're going to interface with the response screen and maybe the resource screens in this screen. Now, the other thing that's available to you that I think is useful, and we should discuss it, is this dashboard. So back here on the left-hand side, we're here at the home screen. You'll see a list of projects you've submitted. You can go in here and take a look at projects that are open, which means we, the SHPO, have not closed that project or are closed, okay? And if you click on this Go To button, the box with the arrow, it will take you to the project. And you can look at the project screen and the history of reviews. To get to the response screen, though, which is often what people are most concerned about, you go to SHPO responses, and for every project where we've responded, you'll be able to access that response screen from here. Okay. Also, we had talked about you got that insufficient email, initial submission insufficient. This is where you would be directed to go in and complete that. It would take you to this particular screen, and you would go in under insufficient tab and look. And what you would do, pretend we're in the insufficient, is you would click on Go To. Oops, that's a project supplement. We're going to go over that in a second. Let's see if I can find one. You would click on Go To. It will take you back into that environmental review submission screen and let you finish whatever the SHPO indicated in that system-generated email you needed to complete. So remember, it's important to save those comments because they're not saved anywhere in the system. They're only in that system-generated email. But if your initial submission is inadequate, this is the screen that link will take you back to, and you just click on Go To and go in and finish the submission. So these are things in draft that I said, finish later, that I never finished. Insufficient are ones for the SHPO. It was submitted, but it wasn't accepted. Submitted, they've been accepted, but they haven't been reviewed yet. And process means someone has reviewed it. And generally, you're only going to have this Go To button available to you on Go. You can only go back in and edit your submissions that are drafts or ones that are insufficient. Once it's submitted, the Go To button goes away. Okay. So if you realize after the fact that you forgot to enter information on a project that you want to send to us that we haven't asked for, I'm going to show you the project supplement wizard in a second. So one last thing here on the external user dashboard are my requests. So any request that the SHPO has made to you would show up here. Okay. So anybody, okay. Anybody have any questions about the dashboard at this point in time? Okay, everybody's pretty quiet. I know it's a lot of information. So one more thing that I wanted to show you is, well, I'm going to show you the search feature first. Let's say that you have an existing project, okay, that wasn't initially entered in PA Share, and you need to send in additional information on it. At the beginning, when we were talking about project contacts, we mentioned the only people that can see the information on the project are those that are project contacts. The only people that can send any additional information as a project supplement on the project are the project contacts. So if you have an existing project, and I'm going to show you really quickly the search feature. Let's say you had a project that was called the, I don't know, I'm going to make something up and see if we can find it, Smith Farm. Okay, so there are 5 Smith Farm projects here. And this one here has, looks like that one's pretty old. Let's go with this, well, let's go with the 1992 and 1992 PR 18144. So I know that my project was called Smith Farms. I'd go here, but it won't let me look at it, right? I'm trying to go to the project. See how that works? It's because I'm not a contact on the project. But I look at this and I'm like, yes, Smith Farms was the name of my project. I know we initially submitted it in 92. So I want to submit additional information on that project, but PA Share will not let me because I'm not a contact. And it wasn't initially entered in PA Share. This is what you do. You send an email to your reviewer, and they'll work to get you added as a project contact and that information into PA Share. And once they do that, then you're going to be able to send that additional information. So real quick, if you are searching on projects though, there's a quick tab where you can just search on a project name. You can search on project number. Then there's a more detailed search for projects. This is a criteria search over here on the left. There's also a map-based search over here on the right. And then down here on the bottom is results. There's sliders here. You can move these different screens. If you have a ton of results, you can move this up. You know, there's a lot of functionality with this. But let's say you're searching on a project that you have an ER number for and you don't know what, you know, the new project number is. You can data enter that number here under legacy project number. Click on search, or you could just hit enter. And here's the results. I can see now that my project's number in PA Share is 2020 PR 03004. So I could submit additional information on that. If I wanted to find out if there was ever a project, you know, or what was going on at a specific location where my current project is, you can just go in here and data enter the address. And it will take you there, and it'll show you what resources are previously identified. If there was a previous project, there would be, you know, they might show you the LOD or the APE. Let me just zoom out here. This is the project that we were looking at earlier, and we data entered. And I'm, okay, here's something. Let's zoom in right there. I think I missed that before. Oh, that was my building. That was my APE that I mapped. You see it? So there's the LOD, and here's the resource boundary I mapped. So I'm trying to find, maybe see what else is on here. But really, you can go in here and see a lot of different information. The red squares are actually historical markers because that's also a program our office administers. So anyway, there's a lot to see in here, but if you find something and you want to see more information on it and it's a project, yeah, there's a lot of resources here. So there's the Myers property, there's a house, I mean, rural historic district. there's a project, and I want to see that Tom and Amy Elliott project. If I'm a contact on it, I can see it. For some reason, it didn't route me to that, but just know that you can use the functionality of the criteria or the map to do searches. So to go back, we want to submit additional information on an existing project. The SHPO has not asked us for that information. This is the tool you would use. Now, this tool is only going to serve you if you want to enter photographs or if you want to send, I know, some revised plans or something like that. If you actually want to send us a survey, oh, I must have written that down incorrectly. No. Yeah, I definitely did. If you want to send us a survey or you want to send us resources, then what you're going to need to do is, I don't know, it's probably because I'm not a project contact on that. Okay. Then what you're going to need to do, I'm going to find one that I'm a contact on, is you're going to have to tell us if you have a survey or if you have resources, you're going to have to tell us, and then we're going to have to open up the gate is what we call it. But essentially, we're going to have to send you a request to data enter a survey or resources. But if it's something simple like revised plans, you can go in using the project supplemental submission wizard and add those documents, okay? And it's very similar. You just upload the plans from your computer and send them over. And then they will come into us and you'll receive those notification emails. But again, if you're not already a contact on the project, you might remember how it wouldn't let me add those two project numbers. That's because I wasn't a contact. Once you're a contact, you can do this. So if you're not a contact and it was a previous project prior to PA Share, you're going to need to let your reviewer know to add you as a contact. Okay. All right, I think we got about 8 minutes left. Do people have specific questions or any experiences with PA Share that you want to share with us?
Hey, Barbara, this is Keith. I do have a question. If we have buildings that are over 50 years old, do we have to make them a new resource?
If you are physically affecting those buildings in the form of demo or some major change, like you're going to take a large straw shed off of the barn, there's going to be some major alteration or total demolition of that building, then you should add them as a resource.
Okay, not just if we're out there and we have a a building from the 1850s and we're not touching it.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, if you're going to like add a grain bin or, you don't need to do that. If you were going to put a giant poultry house in the middle of the farm complex, or I don't know, something sizable like that has the potential to have a visual effect on the farm complex, then we may ask you to add a resource. If you're not sure, just wait and see if we ask you to add the resource. But if it's a demo of a 50-year-old building, then you should add the resource.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Do you ever have, your projects are generally limited to just like specific locations, right? There aren't any multi-property or municipality-wide projects or multiple site location projects that you guys do. Is that right, Keith?
That's correct. Not for us, yes.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure because there's a little different process for some of those agencies that do that. Okay. Well, I hope I haven't put you guys to sleep and that's why you have no questions. That's why we do these in the morning, not in the afternoon. So if you do have questions, feel free to follow up with Casey or I. We've recorded the training and we will be offering it to you probably later this week. And we thank you for your participation. And if you have questions about PA Share, you know, I'd encourage you to use the PA Share at pa.gov email if it's about functionality and the system working. If it's specific to a project review, contact your reviewer. Okay, and then, yeah, so Heather and I will talk later about the AP question she has. Okay, well, thanks, everyone. I hope you guys have a good day.
Hey, Barbara, on
Yeah.
behalf of FSA, I just wanted to thank you very much for your time and how much we appreciate you doing this for us.
Oh, thank you guys for
Thank you.
attending and for using the system. We appreciate it. Have a good one.